here and listen. Okay, so the first technique that I have listed to try is Sgraffito. So here is your example of Sgraffito. Sgraffito is basically scratching through. Very ancient technique. The ancient Greeks used it. We're going to use just regular underglaze. So this is black underglaze. This is like if you've ever done a scratch board, like or scratch paper, it's the same thing. You are scratching through a dark layer in order to reveal like the color of the clay, which is white. So it's a pretty simple process. You're going to take a tile that hopefully is at least leather hard. Now, I just rolled out these tiles, so they're a little bit wet. Not ideal. Sgraffito works better if your tile is leather hard. So if it's had a little bit of time to dry out, that's better. And then you're just painting a layer. I would make sure to use a rib or a card to smooth this out first. That helps a little bit. And you'll notice that it's kind of blending with the clay. The drier your clay is, the less that blending happens. This brush is not great either. You want to have a good brush so that you don't have spots. That's better. Okay. So you're just brushing a layer of a color of underglaze. It really doesn't matter, but I would use a darker color. You could use purple or blue or red even. I've done this with, there was a 5th period, some of you were in that 5th period art class a couple of years ago where we did the boxes, where we did Sgraffito. Right, you guys in that? Some of you were in that. So some of you have had experience with this. I think I've done this with my previous ceramics classes, but I would make sure that it's a really good coating. And then ideally, I would do this and then set it aside to get dry to the touch. You know, even if it's a little tacky to the touch, it still would be a little bit better to be a little bit drier. So I'm going to just set this one aside. I'm going to set this whole piece of paper aside. Also, I will have some scrap paper available to you so that you can avoid painting all over my tables. That would be great. So I'm going to move on to the next, which is paper resist. So paper resist, get something for this to set on. Paper resist is where you are just going to use cut out pieces of paper to resist, and you're going to add layers. So I suggested that you find just like one motif. So let's say you have a bird motif or something that you're going to use for your designs. This is an example of paper resist. You pick out the first thing that you want to be the color of the clay. You're going to cut out. So just for the sake of expediency, I'm going to use a heart because I can cut one out fast. Okay, so, and that's not a great heart. Give it a little more swerve. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet down this paper and stick it where I want. Oh, now it's a broken heart. I kind of like that. I'm going to go with it. And use a sponge to kind of seal it to the surface. You got to seal it to the surface. And then again, this works better with a little bit of a drier tile. But now I'm going to take my first color. So this heart's going to be the color of the clay. The first layer is going to be the color of the clay. And then I paint over it. And then this next layer, everything's going to be red. So this is just layer number 1. The idea with paper resist is that you do like 2 or 3 layers. It also helps to leave some drying time. So I'm showing you these steps all at once, but like I would leave that to dry for 15 minutes, 10 minutes before doing the next layer. So you could go ahead and take some time to cut out some different shapes now. So let's say I want to have some stripes because stripes are just nice. So I'm going to cut out some stripes. And I'm going to get these wet just a little bit so that they stick. Doesn't take a lot of moisture for things to stick to clay. But now I can layer these over. And I'm just going straight on top of the heart. Like so. So now let's say that I want these. I'm going to kind of carefully, without messing up my red, pressing these pieces of paper into the surface so that they're really good and stuck. Let's say I want these stripes to be red. So these stripes are going to be red. When this red is dry, what I can do next is take my next color and paint over this. However, this is a demonstration and I don't have time to wait for things to dry. So I'm going to just go ahead and dive in and paint a layer. It's mixing a little bit with the red, which is not really my intention, but it'll be purple. So I'm going to paint a layer here. So now the stripes are going to be red, the heart is going to be white, and then the next layer is blue. So anything I mask off now, if I do another stripe, anything I mask off now is going to be blue. So let's say I mask that off and I let that dry, and now I paint with black on top of it. So again, pretending this is dry, I'm painting my black. This is going to be my last layer. And then I let this dry. And when I take all of these pieces of paper off, when everything is dried, I'm going to have an interesting design. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. I'm going to go back to Sgraffito real quick. So this demo is just paper resist and Sgraffito. With Sgraffito, you can take any tool and draw through. You just have to kind of clean off your tools, clean off the little clay boogers. Try different tools for different line thicknesses. So this little curved tool will create different kinds of line quality. This triangular tool will create sort of a medium line. You can do fully shaded, fully detailed designs just by using different marks and different tools. So don't underestimate any tool. You could use literally anything that you find around that will scratch away lines. So that is Sgraffito. You're scratching through the surface. I would not brush. Don't brush it off because you're going to just kind of smear everything around. It's going to get messy. So you let it dry. When it's all dry, then you can take a brush and brush off any little nurbles that have been raised. Okay, so that's Sgraffito. And then paper resist, which will look similar to this. So that's 2 of the 5 techniques. And later on, I'll talk about using more traditional stencils, which is similar to the paper resist. But even though this is not totally dry, I'm going to just go ahead and start taking some of these off so you can see them. Again, you guys try to wait until things are totally dry. And then for some of these things, you might need to take like a needle tool to pick up carefully. And then that's my paper resist. Okay? So those 2 decorating techniques are your first 2 decorating techniques. And I can